Welcome back to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Thanks to Dungeons & Dragons, Rick Jaken has been writing adventures since he was a kid. Then he had some real-life adventures in a local watering hole that forever changed his life. The name of his book, This One Time at the Bar, True Stories from a Bouncer. Welcome, Rick. You know, there's a lot going on here and some pretty difficult times for you.
There were so many different things over a course of, a decade. I actually, when I started writing, it wasn't supposed to be a book. One of the chapters goes into the reason why I quit was there was a pretty bad, a violent bar shooting that happened. So I started going to therapy, and my therapist suggested that I write, to get all my thoughts and things out. And it turned, I think there's 30 stories that I used as kind of like a therapeutic means to get over my PTSD. And one day they just were like, hey, this would make a great book.
Well, you said it was a local bar. Did you know the people involved in this incident?
Yeah, they were, one of the victims was a bartender at the establishment, and it was her estranged ex-boyfriend. He does crazy things to people sometimes, and he did not like her answers to wanting to get back together, and he did not handle it too well.
I'm sorry.
Unfortunately, there were a couple other people who got caught in the crossfire. I tried going back to work I stayed at work for like 3 months, and I couldn't sleep at night. It's one of those tragic events that happen, and unfortunately it shaped the better part of a decade of my life afterwards. So.
Yeah, I can understand that. But along the way, before this incident, you were writing down things that were happening in the bar.
Yeah, it was more like, so storytelling kind of goes in my family. My grandfather was from Ireland, and he had the gift of gab, I guess. So, a lot of my stories were just like, I would tell people at like family functions or get-togethers with friends. They'd be like, hey, anything crazy happened? Or I saw this in the newspaper. Was that your bar? And I'd be like, well, yeah. But most of it was from memory, right? Like I would write in a journal, because once that event happened, I started going back and looking. And while there were a lot of humorous and funny times that happened, there was a deeper shadow, I guess I would call it. It's when you see the same people come into a bar over and over and over and over, you tend to get to know everybody, and you can see the pain and sometimes the discomfort in their eyes, and they're going there for an escape. So, writing down the stories was a way for me to cope with their. To be honest, it weighs on you. It's fun when you're in your 20s being a bouncer, have all this power, and you're like, oh, I'm the guy everybody knows. But then after a while, the lifestyle catches up to you. I'm working till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning every day. And
yeah.
I'm not a young kid. So by the time my like mid-30s, late 30s hit, I was like, oh, this is enough. I got to get out. But I don't regret any of it. Like it was very eye-opening as a person.
Is there a story that stands out you can share with me?
So about 3 or 4 years into, well, maybe it was about 5 years into my term there, there was a gentleman who started coming in. He was an older guy, probably in his mid-60s. His name was Frank. And you could tell that, like, there was just something. He was full of piss and vinegar. Like, he was not nice to the bartenders. Like, he just crotchety old guy. But there's always layers to people like that. And I kind of made it a point every time he came in to say hi and talk to him, make small talk. Over the course of about 6 or 7 months, we became pretty friendly with one another. And I invited him to our yearly Christmas party or holiday party, and it was invite only. We would shut the bar down, and people were able to invite people. So I invited him, and that night was pretty eye opening from his perspective. I was able to see that, he had been estranged from his wife and his kids, and the alcohol had played a large part in it. And for the first time in that whole year that I knew him, I saw him smile, and there was a different tenor to the way he would talk to people afterwards. And unfortunately, there was another tragic accident. He had left our bar one night, and he never came back. He had passed away, and it was really, really telling. His son, who I'd never met, they had talked to each other between Christmas and New Year's, and he came into the bar one night, and we had a drink, and I'm kind of friends with him now. I talk to him every year, but that was one of those moments where it was like, okay, I realized that I was more than just a bouncer. I was an outlet for people, and that one always stuck with me. There's always a deeper reason for why people do the things they do. And Frank I miss him. I only knew him for less than a year, and he was a good dude.
Yeah, and you really picked up on him. You're very empathetic,
Yeah.
Well, they say, the best therapists are the bartenders. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
Right? They hear everybody's story. Them and hairdressers.
Yeah,
big therapy business going on there, in the hair salon. So it was cathartic for you to write this book.
Yeah, very cathartic.
Do you still live? Where do you live?
So I live in northern Illinois. I live in a town called DeKalb, Illinois. I'm about 45 minutes from where I was a bouncer.
Are you going to do a book signing at the bar?
Well, I've been in contact. So the owners of the bar that when I worked there are no longer a part of the bar. It's one of my things is I want to go in and, reconnect with some of the people that I used to work with, because I haven't seen them or talked to them in a couple of years now. And I think it would be really fun for all of us to kind of reminisce about the old days. And I would love to do like a book signing, reading at the bar one night or whatever. I think that would be really fun.
Yeah, I think it would be too, Rick. You've got some very relatable stuff here. Yeah, I mean, everybody can see themselves in this book. There's a little bit of all of us.
Yeah, that was like the whole point of it was, right? Like everybody has a story, everybody has a reason, and whether I use a name that somebody knows, like if you're a regular at a bar, you can pick these scenarios up, and you're like, oh, I know a guy just like that, or I know a girl just like that at my bar, and like.
I know this is going to sound weird, but when you go into a church and you look around, it's the same people that are running the church.
Exactly.
That need to be in control of the church.
Exactly.
Right? There's certain kinds of people that have to be involved in the organization, telling other people what to do. Other people just want to be worker bees. They're just coming in.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, they're doing it as a kind of therapy to give back, obviously. But a lot of times it's because they're dealing with something and they got to keep busy. And they got to do something.
That's so true. That is so, so true.
Yeah. And you see the same people in go to any church, you look around and go, oh, yeah, he's probably the, oh, yeah. So a bar is the same thing. There's the guy who sits there, he's there every week. He's there every Thursday at 8:00.
Yeah.
And he leaves at 10. You know what I mean?
Has two, maybe 3 drinks, doesn't really talk to anybody, just there to relax.
Yep.
10 o'clock hits, he's out the door.
And then there's the people that show up just to shake it up.
Yes, there are.
Yeah. Very interesting stuff. Rick Jaken, This One Time at the Bar, True Stories from a Bouncer. Thank you so much.
You are welcome.
Meet Abilio Villaverde, president of Transport Workers Union Local 555, representing 19,000 members of Southwest Airlines ground operations workers. And this is one man determined to keep unions alive, in part by writing his book entitled We Are Family.
Every year, I was a district rep before I became the president last April. And so every year around December, I go through and I figure out how can I improve next year? What can I do differently? I had 13 cities. They were all over the West Coast, including Hawaii. And I just figured out, okay, do I need to change the times I go into the cities to visit and talk to the members? Do I need to do visits in a different part of the year? And also through family events, what could I do differently with those? Well, after doing that for 8 years, in 23 in December, I said, there's, I'm drawing a blank. There's nothing I can think of. So I started thinking about my last couple of visits in Denver, which I'm a Denver rampage, even though I live in Dallas right now. I started thinking about my last few visits into the city, and there's just a lot of young workers that they're hiring. And, when we sit there and we talk about union and how we need to stick together and we're a family, they look at you like, what are you talking about? What's a union? This is my first time ever hearing about a union, even though in the media nowadays you see Starbucks and Amazon, but these kids, they don't watch news.
No.
No, they don't. They watch Instagram and TikTok and all this
Well,
stuff. So,
right. And what they watch, they get more of through the algorithms. So it's not like anything other outside of their interests is coming to them.
yes. So I was thinking, okay, well, how do we reach those people before they get their first job so that when they get their first job and it's a union job, they're not dazed and confused. They're more receptive, they're more appreciative of what they just walked into. So I said, shoot, I'm just going to write a book. I'll write a children's book, and it's geared more towards middle school, so like 8 to 12, and maybe start writing about what a union is and what it can do for each other. And maybe they remember some of the books that they read before they get to their first job. Now, when I throw these union family events, I love to see kids and families. Like I want them to grow up going, I remember, my mom and dad's union picnic or union whatever we're throwing at the event.
Hmm.
And but if those people don't have a union parent, they're not going to know what a union is. So I figured the book might be a way to reach out to a broader range than just my particular members.
That's a great idea. Middle school's a great age too, because you're getting them right before they become arrogant teenagers.
Right?
You know what I mean?
And before they even decide what they even want to do in life.
Right. Right, right, right.
And there's a lot of trades, building trades. It's not just about, airline workers. Matter of fact, the book is not even about a union airline. Um, so it's just trying to get that concept into their mind and be more receptive when they get older. They're gonna be like, oh, I remember reading that book and I understand. And maybe it doesn't work, but it's a try.
Yeah.
So
So how do you lay out the book?
the book is about a union rep who deals with a coworker who thinks the union does nothing for him. And this union rep hosts a union picnic to throw for the members. And at this, and right before the picnic, this gentleman comes home and he tells his family about this coworker and how he doesn't think that the union does anything for him. And the son kind of tells him, well, why don't you find out why he thinks the union doesn't for him? So he's talking to his family about these issues, so they're working through it together as a family. And at this picnic, the son sees his one of his classmates there and walks over with his dad, and the son happens to be the son of the disgruntled union brother. And so the son says he's a little sad and says, hey, why are you sad? And it's because the mom is not there because she's got some medical issues and they can't afford any medicine for her and they're struggling. And so the union rep and his family organize a fundraiser there at the picnic and raise money to help him pay for the medicine. And it wins over this disgruntled coworker. And then at the end, he wants to help the union. He wants to be more involved because he sees what the union does and can do.
What a great lesson.
Yes.
This might be a good book for your workers.
Yeah, it's hard because I can't spend a lot of my time Monday through Friday pushing this book because it would kind of be inappropriate. um, because of my role. So I focus more on the weekends, but that's what actually I've been doing. I'm also the treasurer of the Denver Labor Federation.
Okay.
And so a lot of those unions are buying the book and giving it out to their new members.
How lucky are
Yes.
you? Are you able to go in and talk to members of other unions?
Not currently because of the time that my current position necessitates, but there are there are newer delegates that come to the meeting. Like we have a meeting tonight over Zoom, and then we have one in person in Denver on Thursday. So I will be pushing the book during those meetings, and I've got a lot of support within that organization. And obviously, I'm hoping the best thing is I've been trying to get. I don't know if you know who Liz Schuler is.
Yes. President of the AFL-CIO, right?
Yes, so I've sent her the book. I'm hoping to get some time with her to help me promote the book
Okay.
because she's over all the unions,
Right.
and maybe she could help encourage new members getting the book.
Are you concerned for the future of unions?
I am, the attack on unions, and when you look at the National Labor Relations Board, and we're removing people's rights to argue grievances or anything that the employer has done to violate the contract, and then there's such a fight at Amazon and Starbucks, and slowly those are winning. But with the current administration and how they're trying to, you look at all these federal workers that are under contracts, they're unionized, like
Yes.
AFGE, and they're being fired. Like they have no rights, no recourse at all. So that's the protection that union workers have, is their contract. That's their Bible, right? That's how everything works at their job. That's how they got their weekends off and their pay, and how they can't just be fired without just cause. Now it's being thrown without the window without. And how do you do that? How do you violate something that you agree to with that union?
Through bargaining.
Yeah. And like, how, if it's not respected, what are we really negotiating for when we sit down and negotiate a contract?
Well, it sends a message to workers. Why should I pay union dues? Why should I get involved in my union? Why should I fight to be unionized? Because it's not going to matter anyway. Look at all these federal workers getting fired. And I think that is the message that they want to send.
Yeah, and that would definitely hurt the power of that unions have, and obviously it would put a lot of unions in a financial situation where they couldn't fight certain issues or do certain things because of the lack of funding.
Right. Well, keep fighting the good fight. Abilio Villaverde, author of We Are Family. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Robert Leah has a backstory that tells you he's exactly where he was intended to be. He's been cooking since he was 8 years old, and as a teenager, his career got a jump start when he was working as a dishwasher in a kitchen, and the entire staff quit. From dishwasher to chef to author, he's written a cookbook for every palate. It is entitled Mood Food. And this isn't your first book, right?
Yeah, I've got a couple of other books. I've got, I was co-author of 72 Market Street Dishes It Out, which was published back in 1998. And when I lived in Paris, France as a chef, I wrote a book called The Tasting Chef, which was just like a bunch of my really little, and that's a very small book. It was online only. That was just a collection of my favorite dishes that I've come up with over the years. And then, then now Mood Food, which is basically like something I've been working on for quite some time, and finally polished it up and got it out to the public.
I love the whole concept that it's, you're cleansing our palate.
Yeah, it started off like I was a chef at this place called Cicada in downtown LA, and every person that they came in, that we sat them down, and we started them off with an amuse, which was, generally speaking, was to get the toothpaste out of their mouth and get them ready for the meal that they were about to have, and kind of prep their palate for how we wanted it to be. So that's one of the premises of the cookbook, is to use moods, the mood that we're in order to cook.
Give me an example of that.
Well, for the first chapter, Amuse is exactly that. It's a bunch of small very tiny little appetizers meant to tantalize the mouth. I mean, amuse-bouche in French means mouth teaser.
So what would you serve me?
Gosh, everything from ceviches, hamachi crudo. My favorite palate cleanser, if I were to stick it on a plate in the middle of the summertime, it would be heirloom cherry tomatoes with fresh basil and some really good Grana Padano cheese, served in a tiny little spoon with high quality extra virgin olive oil and some Himalayan sea salt.
Oh my gosh.
Right there. What'll happen is that you'll get the olfactories will get activated with the basil, the Himalayan sea salts. We all know what that does to you. That's just a wonderful texture quality that gets added to the dish. Heirloom tomatoes being ripe and fresh in season, and then the extra virgin olive oil coats your mouth.
I love that. All right, now you have a chapter on surprised. Got a favorite one there?
Probably my favorite one in there is the grilled vegetable terrine. This is an old spin off a classic French dish, and it's meant for the vegetarian. You take eggplants and zucchini and squash, different vegetables that really don't get used very much, except for like in ratatouille and things like that, basil, and you slightly thin these guys on the mandolin so they're not quite paper thin, but just a little stitch above paper thin. You give them a little bit of Maillard effect on either side, which means browning. You get a little touch of color on them. Roast the red bell peppers kind of like you would for you take the skin off. Roast them whole. Get the skin off.
Yeah.
And then you layer this in a loaf pan. So it's alternating layers between eggplant, zucchini, squash, and then the bell peppers. If you want to, I prefer using gelatin, but that doesn't make it vegetarian or vegan anymore. So you can use agar, and you sprinkle the agar in between each slice of the layer. Now, there's not much needed because there also is going to be a little tiny bit of gelatin involved in the vegetables. The sugars will caramelize and they'll create their own kind of gelatinous with the stock involved. And then when you bake that in the oven and you press it down into a loaf and you slice it once it's cold, you take it out of the loaf pan and you slice it like bread. And it's got this multi-layer, kind of like a millefeuille, so to speak, but with vegetables.
Is it kind of sweet?
It does have an element of sweetness to it from the onions and the bell peppers, but I wouldn't necessarily call it sweet. I think it would be kind of like umami. It's got salt. It's got definitely the eggplant is not sweet. The squash and the zucchini you're cooking these first before you stick them in the loaf pan, so they do have a bit of caramelization on them. So that adds to the sweetness, but it's more of a spectrum. It's not just sugar sweet.
Okay, so you got 13 chapters. Do you tell stories with your recipes?
No, they're just pretty straightforward recipes. My original audience for this was going to be chefs. I mean, I wanted to share some of my creativity with chefs, and the story itself is kind of like in the history of how I came up with these recipes. They're just so. It was quite the journey for myself to create all these recipes and put them into a format that I thought would be palatable for everybody. That's why I chose the different moods. And to be honest with you, that movie like Water for Chocolate really had a profound effect on me when I was a young chef, because I was quite moody as a chef, and and I did find that if I was a little spicy, man, my food became a little spicy, So that movie in itself had that original foundation for me in writing this book.
Oh, you're funny. Well, chefs can be mercurial, because it's all the
Totally.
pressure. It's all the pressure you're under.
Well, yeah, and it's because like our food is a little bit of a lot of bit of us, right? I mean,
Yeah.
That's what makes chefs and dining so interesting. I mean, if you think over the history of time and how many dishes have been created, right? And we're still continuing to come up with new dishes and innovative ways to cook things. So that lends to the person and the personality behind it. So when you're pouring your soul out onto a dish, and it's 110 degrees in the kitchen, and you got 30 people working for you, yeah, damn straight you're going to be a little moody.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Now you have a chapter on comfort food.
Yes, ma'am.
Everybody thinks meatloaf and potatoes, right? Mashed potatoes and meatloaf, right? What do you got there, chef?
Sloppy Joe,
Mm.
confit de canard, duck confit, wild mushroom risotto,
Ah,
ossobuco, those kinds of dishes for me.
yeah.
Growing up in French restaurants, I was a line cook and sous chef at a lot of French. I'm making myself coffee at the same time here.
Yeah, I can hear the whistle.
My go-to French press in the morning. So
Yeah.
you know what? Comfort was changed to mellow. So that's absolutely correct of the dishes I was talking about. So wild mushroom risotto, and growing up in French restaurants, and one of the recipes that I've acquired over the years was this fabulous 150-year-old duck confit recipe. And some of these things you just don't change. They adapt to your kitchen, because obviously duck confit doesn't get stuck in the ground anymore like it used to. But it's a staple that we sit there and we have in our kitchen, and it lasts forever because of the fat preservation. It keeps the fat cap over all the meats. It's an amazing thing. One of the restaurants I was chef at was 72 Market Street. And myself and the executive chef there wrote that cookbook, 72 Market Street dishes it out. The some of the staples in that kitchen, like our chili, for example, were done in the style of duck confit. And how do you do that? Well, you keep the fat cap on top of the container, so it keeps out all the oxygen.
Right.
And you really kind of age the dish in your refrigerator for a certain period of time before you serve it, and it's protected by the fat.
Huh.
So like even though duck confit may not be used in some of the kitchens, the process itself is used. I mean, I've made tomato confit where we use olive oils and preserved tomatoes that have been aged in roasted and then aged in olive oil for a little bit. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is cool. Your book sounds amazing. Now, do you have a following, since this isn't your first cookbook?
Yeah, yes. Thank God for Facebook and Twitter, or excuse me, X. You've got people that follow you as a chef over the years, and they just log into my chef page on Facebook, and they've been following me there. As far as cookbook signings, I've got a couple of planned. Obviously, I'm going to do one here in Denver, and my home base is Los Angeles.
Okay.
A lot of my career was spent in Los Angeles, and I've got a couple of venues that are gracious enough to let me have a cookbook signing there. A few of the country clubs that I've been chef at over the years, the following there is thousands strong. So I'm going to do book signings at both country clubs. And then I've got a book signing planned, not completely signed and sealed yet, in Frankfurt, Germany. I'm looking to do a book signing at a book fair in Frankfurt, Germany in October.
Great.
So yeah, I mean, I'm excited about the prospects of this book. I'm very proud of this book. It took me a long time to get through my personal woes of editing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever written a book before, but like once you think you're done, you've got to let go of it and just go with it. And I edited it for many years and couldn't get out of that phase. So
yes,
once I got through that, now I'm really excited about it.
Robert Leah, author of Mood Food. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. It's wonderful speaking to you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Lula Stein is an accounts payable analyst who uses writing to exercise her creative muscle. Now she's taken a book she started a while back and published The King's Music. Lula, you say you've been writing for as long as you can remember.
Yeah, I've loved to write since I was a little kid. I'd always put together little books with drawings, and then I started writing more in high school, and actually started based this book, The King's Music, off of something that I wrote in high school, off of a short story that I wrote in high school for a creative writing class.
How long ago was that?
very long time ago.
A very long, because honestly, you sound like, maybe you're 30. That's what you sound like to me.
You're pretty close.
So why now? Like, why did you decide, oh, I'm going to finish writing this, and I'm not only going to finish writing it, I'm going to publish it?
Well, after my first daughter was born, I was home and I had a lot of time, and she slept a lot. She slept a lot more than I expected, so I had a lot of free time, and I just started writing it. I knew I wanted to write a novel and get published. That's always been my dream. And so I just sat down and started writing it. And then I put it down, and years later, I had a free summer to do all the editing, and I doubled it in size and finally finished it.
That's great. So it's a love story.
It is.
And you describe your Rose as an unmotivated party girl.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So she experienced a lot of trauma in her life, but because of this, she just started partying and doing drugs and drinking a lot, and she just had kind of a bad home life, and so she just lost all motivation for everything. And it wasn't until she got transported to this new world that she started to become kind of a real person again.
A medieval style world with a
Mm-hmm.
ruling king who has magical powers that he uses for bad things, very bad things, right?
Yep.
Turns soldiers into animals so he can control them, enacts a curfew throughout the land that he enforces with hypnotic music. I like that. What kind of music does he use to enforce a curfew?
So originally when I wrote the short story, it was supposed to be classical music. That's always what I envisioned. So I kind of think of classical music in the background, but it's more of like a chant in your head.
Okay. That you can't get out of your head.
Yes.
Anyway, so Rose meets Mikhail, a rugged hunter, and of course she falls in love, and he takes her to his camp of rebel elves.
Yes. So she goes to his rebel camp, which is in a cave, and she just starts living with everyone there and becomes part of their society. And it's obviously very different from where she lived. She was very wealthy where she lived as well. So um, she was used to high-end technology and top line everything. And now she's living in a cave, no running water. Um, but she makes friends there, and she starts to fall in love with Mikhail, and she wants to be like him. Like, she wants to be around him all the time. So she starts learning to train to hunt with him, because she just wants to find herself and become this tough person, because she's never really been that. And yeah, she starts to see connections while she's there. She starts to see connections to her home, to where she came from, and so she starts trying to put together pieces to figure out why she's there and what the connections are.
Her friend Trixie sounds like fun.
She is. They don't leave the cave for the majority of the time. She ends up leaving the cave with Mikhail, but she and Trixie never really do. But they have fun. They hang out in the cave. There's a bar there that they go to a lot, and yeah, they play games. They joke around.
And then there's a subplot. Her father has disappeared. Now, did he disappear in her real life or in this magical life?
In her real life.
Okay.
So she, yeah, when she was a child, he disappeared, and she always blamed herself. She thought that or her mother told her that he ran away, that he left, that he abandoned their family.
So the question is there a connection between his disappearance and the world that she finds herself in?
That is the question.
Is this the beginning of a trilogy or a series?
It is, yes. So I've always envisioned it to be a trilogy.
Okay. And you leave us hanging at the end of this, I suspect.
I do.
Okay. And you're loving every minute of this.
I am. I'm very excited. I've already planned out the second one. I'm going to be starting that one shortly.
Okay. How was your experience with your publisher?
Oh, it was great. Yeah, I really enjoyed working with them. They made it very easy. I especially liked the audiobook company that I worked with. Um, they they did a very good job.
What else are you doing to tell people about your book?
I'm not very good at with social media, so I'm working with Snow Tree Media, and they're going to be creating accounts for me, and then I'm going to obviously learn how all of it works so I can keep up with it.
Any thoughts for our listeners who the whole point of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable is we talk about the process and we talk about there's a lot of people who just don't know where to begin. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, you just have to start somewhere. Just pick an idea. I didn't map it out quite as much as I was told to.
Okay.
I just kind of started spitting things out, and I started mapping out characters, and as I got deeper into it, I started planning things more just so that I could have a better idea of what I was going to do. But yeah, I just kind of spit it all out.
How did it feel when you were done?
Oh, it felt amazing.
Yeah, it's quite an accomplishment. It really is.
Thank you.
Lula Stein, author of The King's Music. Ann McNeill is a journalist, and she's written for magazines and newspapers for decades, but this is her first published book. It's entitled The Charles Manson Family in Death Valley. Ann, I'm curious, what kind of writing did you do?
Well, I was the food editor of the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner for several years, actually the last one before the Hearst Company closed it down, and had a lot of fun there. I studied food science and nutrition in college, so it was something I've been interested in my whole life. And I was the editor of a small newspaper here in Nevada, where I live now. So I've been writing a lot my whole life, but this is actually the first published book that I have.
What an interesting background you have. So, the Charles Manson family in Death Valley. You said that you did some work with American Indians in Death Valley?
The indigenous Indian tribe is still there in Death Valley, and I worked with them as a grants writer for a little while. But while I was the manager of the Death Valley Chamber of Commerce, which sounds strange, they do have one, and several businesses around the whole national park are involved in the chamber. A woman came into the office while I was there. The office was in a museum in Shoshone, California, which is just outside of the park, and just casually talking, and said she lived with the Manson family. I didn't think much of it. I wasn't terribly interested in any of that at that time. But when I started to write a book, all of that kept coming into my head. And I said, okay, I'll just go with it, and just started writing what some adventures she told me about. So it ended up with this book.
How involved was she with the Manson family?
I don't think she lived with them very long. I've read, there may be 20 or 30 books out there about the murders and everything that they did in the late 60s and 70s, but there was nothing that I found about their life, that they were hiding out in a very remote area of Death Valley. just kind of on the rim of the park. And it was very sparse living. People came and went all the time. So I don't, like I said, I don't think she lived with them very long, but she told me about how they lived and what they had to eat. They came into the surrounding towns in Nevada to do what they call creepy crawling. At night, they went into homes and the campgrounds in the national park and took whatever they could find to eat, or if there was any money laying around, to sustain themselves. And it was they were hiding out from law enforcement, so they didn't want to be very visible during the day. But the number one best-selling true crime book was the prosecutor Vincent B's book, Helter Skelter.
Right.
So I read that, and I read several of the 20 or 30 others. There's a lot on the market about all of that, but I didn't want to write about that. I didn't know about, why they did that, all the murders and everything. I wanted to write about what I knew, about it in Death Valley, how they lived and hiding out from law enforcement.
How long did they live there?
No, I think it was in August of '69 that they did the murders, the famous murders of Sharon Tate, and I'm not sure how they found this area in Death Valley, whether they ran into someone who was coming and going with the family. There's actually 2 small ranches out in that area, and they drifted up there, and there were small cabins that they could exist in, and that's where they lived. But it was a year round until law enforcement caught up with them and put them in jail and seal their fate.
What else did you find out?
I'm very much into animals of all kinds, and they had some burros wandering into the camp. The woman that told me about it, came up to see Charlie reading. He couldn't read very well. He was a very slow reader. I don't think he had much really good education that way. And he was leaning against a burro. They were laying down on the ground, and he was reading. And things like that intrigued me about it.
What did they expect to do out there?
They were hungry a lot. I mean, that's what they did with this creepy crawling stuff. And they did a lot of what they call dumpster diving in back of stores that, day-old celery and bread and that sort of thing. They took back to their camp, and so that's how they survived, more or less. And amazingly, there was during certain rainy seasons, I guess during the winter, there was a small stream, and it seems very unlikely with Death Valley, but at times there are storms out there, and there's the lake at Badwater actually has filled up with water at one time. And the Las Vegas Review-Journal had a picture of a man kayaking across the lake as to illustrate that there actually was water in the lake. So they did have some natural things available like that at times.
Do you talk about this woman's story, or did you just kind of use her as a reference?
I never asked her name. I didn't get people would come into the museum that I managed with the chamber, and I didn't get into their personal life that much. But she seemed to want to tell her story, so I call her Patty Sue. If you Most everyone on the planet knows about the Manson family murders because it was so sensationalized, and it was about Hollywood people and all. Those two of the women that participated, Patricia Krenwinkel and Susan Atkins, were two of the main people. So I combined their names into Patty Sue as the main character that was telling me these stories.
Are you doing any book signings? Are you out talking about your book?
I have a couple of things in mind here locally that I'm going to do. I've contacted some people I know. I still have some contacts in the newspaper industry and in local television here. I will have some interviews with them and publicize it that way.
Good stuff. So you're going to keep writing?
Actually, I had tried to write another book, which was about some adventures that I had about publishing a small newspaper here. But this book kept coming into my mind. So I wrote the Manson book, but I have maybe half written another book about this, my adventures with this newspaper, and I'm going to go back to writing it when I get this one fully launched, as they say.
Great. Good for you. Well, Mary Ann McNeill, author of The Charles Manson Family in Death Valley. Thanks so much for talking with me.
Well, thank you for calling. I appreciate it.
Mark C. Russell believes the government has been watching him ever since he was first employed as an auditor in the 80s. He tells us why and what he hopes to do about it in his book, A Classified Look at the Great Satan of America, Top Secret Government Persecution. Welcome, Mark. Now, when exactly were you convinced the government was spying on you?
Well, a number of things. They put TV ads on my TV. I go around town and I see these license plates for future possible jobs with the government. They tap my phones. They mess with my computer. They have controlled my mouse on my computer. And like I said, they follow me everywhere around town. And, you know, I get into it in my book. It tells you everything that's going on.
And so when you suspected that somebody had control of your computer, people are going to think, well, how is that possible? Did you say something to your boss?
That happened after I worked for the government.
While you were working for the government, when did you first suspect they're listening to me?
I was on the phone one night, and I was talking to somebody, and I go, shitty this, shitty that, shitty everything. And then the next day, when I went to my job, I heard from my boss in the room next door to me, and she would go, oh, shitty this, shitty that, and shitty everything. They were listening in onto my phone. They were illegally surveillancing me, stalking me, and trespassing against me. And like I said, they follow you everywhere. Everywhere. In your home, they're listening to us right now, Alice. It's a nightmare, Alice.
Did you gather enough factual evidence? Can you take some kind of action?
I've been trying to do that. I called up the whistleblower people, Office OSC there, Office of Special Counsel, I think it's called, and I've government accountability, and I've tried to write to the Democrat and Chronicle newspaper. Any number of people I've been trying to contact and gotten nowhere.
Do you have any idea why they would do this to you?
They want to try to get you into their system. And like I said, the book's called A Classified Look at the Great Satan of America. Has to do with Satan. And my book goes right into it and spells it right out, Alice. I mean, you can't go wrong if you read my book.
So you mean like a secret society?
Well, yeah, it's a top secret environment, and one of the auditors that I worked with, he goes, well, Mark, we don't mind if a little man watches us. That means that they're watching us illegally.
So you did confront coworkers and people you suspected of watching you.
Yeah, I did. I accused them of spying on me illegally trespassing, stalking, and surveillancing me.
And what did they do?
Well, they said it wasn't true, but if they did speak up, they had the possibility of losing their job or something like that.
Did you end up losing your job?
Oh, actually, they when I after like 3 years gone past, they laid me off. They fired me. They told me that if I didn't get my head straightened out, I couldn't work for them. And they told me that when I left there, I couldn't have any. I couldn't tell people anything about my religion, is what they were saying. They says if you work for the government, you can't profess your religion with people that you work with. So, yeah, whatever.
So you ended up getting laid off, and is that when you decided that you were going to write this book?
I wouldn't call it laid off. I would say I was freaking fired.
Yeah. And is that when you decided to write this book?
Yes, ma'am.
It also says in your synopsis that you're trying to get support so that you can sue the government.
You know what? I tried doing that. I hired an attorney, and he started to sue the government. But then he told me, well, you're going to spend $10,000-$15,000 for him to do it. And I didn't have that kind of money. So that left that as is.
So now, do you go out and talk about your book?
No, I'm pretty much keep it to myself. I do have a psychiatrist.
Okay.
But I tell him pretty much what's going on. He doesn't say anything about it, but that's what I've been doing.
So when it comes to promoting your book, it's not like you're out going to bookstores or doing anything.
Well, yeah, I have a publisher, Fulton Books, and I also went to I got in touch with Barnes and Noble, that one store there, and you wouldn't believe the trouble I had, but they finally carried my book, one copy of it, in their store, and they put it under biography. I said, no, it's not under biography, it's under religion. And they snapped back at me and said, no, it's under biography because that's the way they do things.
Why should it be under religion, do you think?
Because it's all about Satan.
Yeah, it's also about the government.
Yeah. Well, it would be both, Satan and the government.
How long ago did all this start?
Well, I originally started working for the government in 1986. What I did is I collected facts and statistics over all these years, Alice. At one point in time, I was talking to various people, and they said, well, you got to write a book. So I wrote a book. It took me about a year, I would say about a year to collect all the information and put it together and write a book.
So in 1986, you started working. When did they start spying on you?
Right away. You know what I did? Alice? I repeated something in my apartment at night, right?
Yeah.
I repeated something either on the phone or in my apartment, and then the next day, I would hear from my boss repeat what I said the night before in my apartment. And I did that twice. So what that meant was they were spying on me, illegally surveillancing me, trespassing against me, and stalking me.
How long did you work for the government?
It was about 3 years.
So 89, you stopped working for the government.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Don't quote me.
Okay. So, and then the surveillance continued after that.
Yes, big time. I go around town, Alice, and there's these cars that I run into with these license plates, and they have everything to do with the government. You know, where possible government jobs, places where government jobs are. To give you an example, at one point in time, I was seeing license plates with G7, G9, G11, 13, and on up, which is the government standard, the government jobs. They were trying to get me back to work for them.
What did you end up doing in the 90s? Did you get another job?
Oh no, they put me on Social Security disability.
So you never worked again?
No, I didn't work after my government job there. Oh, well, I did have a couple of little jobs. Alice, it's been a nightmare.
I'm so sorry.
I deal with the government on a daily basis, you know. And like I was telling you, right now they're even listening to us. So they've got my doctor. They got him stalked out, and anybody that has anything to do with me, they've got them stalked out. Believe me.
I hope I'm not stalked out.
Yeah. Hopefully you won't be stalked out, right?
All right. Mark C. Russell, author of A Classified Look at the Great Satan of America, Top Secret Government Persecution. Thank you so much for talking to me.
All right. Well, take care, Alice.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.